The U.S. SPR was created after the '73 oil embargo, the Arab oil embargo that occurred after the Arab-Israeli war in October of '73. The U.S. faced an embargo from the Arab oil producers that then was also accompanied by significant price increases. So the move in the U.S. was to create the SPR as essentially as a bank, that we would have this currency, crude oil, that we could draw out of the SPR during an emergency. Since that time, there have only been a couple of instances in which refiners have been allowed to tap into the SPR when there were periods of shortages. I think after Hurricane Katrina was one of them. And they were allowed to withdraw crude because it was considered an emergency. But right now, it functions simply as a gigantic bank of crude that the U.S. government owns, but is not really utilizing. The Chinese are taking a different approach, and that is that they're managing their SPR as more of a commercial enterprise in which their various state-owned oil companies are using the SPR as a kind of as a hedging tool that they can fill it with crude at certain times when they think prices might be lower, or they can withdraw at their convenience. So it's part of a different kind of approach to the market that the Chinese are taking than a more hands-off policy, more free market policy in the U.S. Well, this is something that economists grapple with all the time, and it doesn't make sense for a country to even have a strategic petroleum reserve. Libertarians argue that in fact they're of little value because the market will react and react quickly enough with a price response that makes an SPR redundant. And I think lately there's been a lot of discussion about the SPRs in the U.S. and in China artificially inflating demand. Here we are, it's March of 2008, and some economists or energy economists are looking at America's strategic petroleum reserve, which is still adding additional oil into the SPR now, and they're saying we should quit filling it. We're adding artificial demand to the market for light sweet crude, which is the most valuable, the most sought after grade, at a time when the market is already worried and nervous about undersupply. So we should quit filling the SPR now, and that artificial demand will go away. The same can be said for the Chinese. They're filling their SPR now, and thereby adding essentially artificial demand to an already tight market. So there is an idea that these SPRs provide some security, but there's also a question about how viable they are, because yes, they may contain 1 billion barrels, but you can't get 1 billion barrels out at a time. You can only withdraw, for the U.S., it's I think 3 or 4 million barrels a day.